Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the Analyst dated 16th of March, which is a good day to have an in-depth analysis of the following current affair articles derived from both the Hindu and Indian Express. In the first article, we will do a thorough assessment of the multi-modal transport in India, as Indian Railway plans to develop multimodal transport hubs in aspirational districts under the Viksit Bharat initiative. Then, in the second article, we will evaluate the benefits and challenges of installing wind power infrastructure, as recently Adani wind power project in Sri Lanka has run into controversy. Then, in the third article, we will do a case study of one of the worst droughts faced by Karnataka's capital city, that is Bangalore. And in the fourth article, we will learn about the art facility, that is, the Atmospheric Research Testbed, which has been recently inaugurated by the Ministry of Earth Sciences in Madhya Pradesh. And finally, we will wind up the discussion with a study of Telecommunication Regulatory Authority of India, which is TRAI. So let's get started. So can we see the first headline in the screen? This is talking about Indian Railways planning to develop multimodal transportation hubs across the aspirational districts of India in line of the Viksit Bharat initiative. And under this context, we will have an assessment of the multi-mode transport. What are the challenges associated? What is the need for India? And how is it beneficial for reducing the logistic cost and improving the logistic efficiency of India? Now let's have an assessment of how India is performing in its multimodal logistics and overall logistics. So, the assessment of India's logistic performance is gauged by two parameters, two indexes. First of all, the Logistics Performance Index that is done by the World Bank. In this particular index, India has drastically improved its performance. Back in the year 2014, we were having a rank of 54th. And lagging behind some of the developing economies like even Bangladesh. But now we have improved drastically, conquering the rank of 38th position in the year 2023. In which index? Logistic Performance Index. You must also remember who publishes this Logistics Performance Index, and it is World Bank. Now, the next assessment, that is an intra-country, a state-wise assessment, is made by the Ministry of Commerce and Industries in the name of Leads Index. It assesses multiple states and how they are performing logistically. And it has been found out that it has been, the Gujarat has been the top performer over here, followed up by Haryana, then Punjab, then Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. You must also remember this, that some of the northwestern states have been highly performing in the logistic performance of India. If you talk about the Logistic Performance Index, it assesses the logistic performance on the basis of following parameters. These are the custom duties, the infrastructure, international shipment, logistic quality and competence, tracking and tracing and timeliness. That is, what is the turnaround time, or also what is known as dwell time. I'll be teaching you that in the upcoming slide. But these are the parameters on which a performance is gauged. When it comes to India, India has been performing well in the overall LPI rank, has been performing well in the infrastructure development. In fact, it has got the highest rank in the infrastructure development only, and then highest improvement in the rank, and then it has performed everywhere good except for the customs and the tracking and the tracing time because of some of the technological issues and because of some of the regulatory issues as well. So India is also, the logistics sector of India is also plagued by some of the challenges, but it is point to be noted that we have performed drastically well. Now, what is the share of GDP and why is it a concern for India? How much chunk of GDP is actually taken away by the inefficient logistics of India? You'll be surprised to know that 14% of our GDP goes for feeding the inefficient logistics of India. And the good news is that government is trying to improve this by having a target of cutting down this cost by up to 5% in the next 5 years by pursuing some of the plans that we will be looking into the next slide. So this is the overall status of logistics in India. How to basically improve our logistics performance? By integrating the concept of multimodal logistics. That is, incorporating different type of logistics, different type of waterways, different type of airways and roadways, etc. into a single contract for the movement of resources. Now, first of all, why in the first place should India even think about incorporating a multi-modal plan for itself? The first thing is that there are multiple challenges. First challenge is that it will ultimately improve the overall logistic efficiency. So just imagine you have got multi modes of transport with you. You have got the airways, the seaways, the waterways, the railways, etc., the roadways, and you can incorporate the best of them into a single cargo, into a single mode of contract or transport. What will happen in that case? You will take the best of airways, which is it provides quicker movement. You can take the best of railways, where it provides again quicker movement with higher capacity. You can also incorporate the best of roadways, the roadway transport, which is responsible for providing the last mile connectivity, which is not accomplished by the other mode of transport. You can also provide a cheaper mode of transport by incorporating waterways, the inland waterways and also the outwards. So basically, when you incorporate the best of all these together and you integrate them together, the overall efficiency of Indian logistics, that drastically improves. What happens if the efficiency of our transport improves? It also enhances the overall efficiency, which drastically reduces the cost that is actually costing a bearing of 14% to the GDP. So this will also be very cost effective by having a multimodal means of transport. This will also help us to increase connectivity. Just imagine if I want to transport something from Borivali to Europe. Is that even possible without incorporating multimodal transport? Because I will be encountering continent, I will be encountering sea, I will be encountering vast distances. Will it be possible by only one mode of transport? No. So I will be able to enhance my connectivity. In fact, I will be able to connect the last mile rural areas. That is, let's say the aspirational districts, let's say the Dantewada district with Mumbai. That will be accomplished in a cost-effective manner while incorporating multimodal transport. Then it also offers me flexibility and reliability, because as a contractor now I have been offered the option of having assessment of multiple roads, multiple modes of transport. How will it help me? So I will be able to take the best use, I will be able to choose the best mode of transport in the best amount of time and in the best place. And this will help me to again drastically reduce the cost of transportation. And this will help me provide more flexibility also. What if congestion happens across the roadways? Then I will be able to provide an alternative mode of it. I'll be able to airlift it. What if some emergency happens? Then I will be able to shift the cargo from roadways to, let's say, waterways, or let's say to your railways. So this will also help me take care of some of the exigencies. For example, some congestion, or for example, some emergency if that at all happens. Can I also say that this method is also environmentally sustainable? Because now I can also have more options apart from just roadways, which are having high carbon footprint, highly polluting. Now I can move to more eco-friendly models like waterways, like for example railways. So this also reduces drastically the carbon footprint of the transportation sector of India. Therefore, there are multiple advantages, and therefore India is taking huge strides in order to develop multimodal logistic parks. You can see that it has been created in Assam, it has been created in South, it has been created in North, in fact up to Jammu and Kashmir. So everywhere now Indian government is trying to put the infrastructure of multimodal logistic park. Now, once we know about the advantages, we must also know about the challenges faced by multimodal transports. First of all, there are existing infrastructural bottlenecks that are faced by India. If you see the roads, they are heavily unconstructed or they are not maintained properly. Second, if you talk about the ports, they are heavily congested. If you talk about the railways, they are underdeveloped and they are overcompensated. Now, if you talk about the infrastructural bottlenecks, it basically exists across all the modes of transport. So the first thing that we need to do is basically improve the infrastructure of logistics in India. Is government taking any step in this regard? Yes, we have got Bharatmala, we have got Sagarmala, we have got the National Logistics Policy and other plans as well. The PM Gati Shakti plan, there are many others, and therefore India has been able to uplift itself in the overall infrastructure ranking in the Logistic Performance Index. So first of all, we have got infrastructure bottlenecks. Second, we have got certain regulatory hurdles as well. So the compliance time, the bureaucratic red tapeism, the amount of time taken for acquiring the custom duty, the passes, the multimodal transit passes, that also takes a lot of time. This also makes it very difficult. So basically what happens is transport requires speed. Transport is efficient only if it is delivering the resource in time, in speed. And that is drastically compromised because of such regulatory hurdles that India has got. Next, we have got modal shift constraints as well. What do we mean by this? If I want to shift from one mode to another, there needs to be a collaboration, there needs to be an integration. So what do we need? We need multimodal parks for it. Do we have enough multimodal parks till now? No. We have them, but only in the more affluent cities and more populated cities. But what about the aspirational district cities? We are only creating it today, right now. I mean, the government is taking up that project in this year itself. So we also have a lot of scope of improving our multimodal shift by bringing up some of the multimodal projects, or basically multimodal parks, the integrated parks. Next, there is lack of standardization. If I'm trying to move from one state to another, of course, I will be encountering multiple contracts, I'll be encountering multiple documents and regulations, and that will be different for each and every state. Because there is lack of standardization in the transportation movement, these problems are often stifling the seamless transport across India, especially the multimodal transport of India. There is different documentation and regulation for airways, different for roadways, different for airways. So therefore, lack of standardization stifles the speed. Second thing is, we are also lacking in technology and digitization, because of which the regulatory hurdles like bureaucratic red tapeism can also make a conflict in this transportation sector. So what we need to do, we need to improve our standardization, we need to improve technology and digitization, we need to put up a more robust digital infrastructure. Then India, obviously, because it suffers from all these bottlenecks, ultimately offers one of the highest freight cost ever that has been seen across the world. So the transportation cost, the freight cost in India is again one of the highest, in fact, fourth highest in the world. And if you talk about the other factor like unorganized players presence, which are highly unregulated, we again dominate that space. Every 1 out of 6 player who is working in the logistics sector is actually coming from the unorganized sector. When you're talking about unorganized sector, it is heavily unregulated. Therefore, these are some of the challenges which possess restrictions or which possess difficulties in rolling out an efficient multimodal transport in India. You can see from this chart map also, it has been published by World Bank. Just have a comparative analysis and this will help you in mains as well. What is the average distance traveled by truck per day in case of India? It is only about 200 kilometers. Globally, at a global average, it is double to that, 400 kilometers. If you talk about the waiting time, if you talk about the air transportation, then the airport waiting time in exports for India is about 50 hours, whereas globally it is just 12 hours. If you talk about port and sea, the turnaround time for a ship to put up a cargo in one place and then shift to another place, that is the destination, the turnaround time is drastically high for India, that is about 84 days as compared to just 7 days for Singapore. So these are some of the comparative analysis which showcases that we have a lot of scope and a lot of need to improve the logistics efficiency. So how can we do that and what government has been doing for the same? First of all, government for the first time put up a policy with the name of Multi-Modal Transportation of Goods Act 1993, and this was basically to provide the licenses for the first time for the transporters who want to opt for multimodal means of transportation or logistics. So this was to regulate them, this was to provide them licenses under the designated authority. Now, the idea was nowadays government was implementing that this has to be replaced by a national logistics law, and that national logistics law has been formulated in the form of national logistics policy. Now, if you talk about the multimodal logistics park, these are the integrated group of chains including multi-modes, and these are basically installed by government and created, such infrastructure is created by government, especially in the strategic locations like that of Northeast, like that of aspirational districts, in order to boost the development by decreasing drastically the transportation cost, rationalizing the transportation cost over there. So multimodal logistic park is good way forward by Government of India. Now, in order to improve or in order to enhance the connectivity, government has also put forward dedicated freight corridors, where it will focus on creating high speed and high capacity railway tracks which are dedicated only for the transportation of freight and not passengers. Then if you talk about some of the more connectivity boosting products, then projects. Then these are the Sagarmala projects, which is responsible for the port connectivity in India. Bharatmala project, which is responsible for constructing efficient roadways, expressways, highways, so that we can have high speed movement of the cargoes. Now, there is also a national master policy for multimodal transport in the name of PM Gati Shakti initiative, launched in the year 2021. Now, this will also help us to boost the multimodal logistic infrastructure in the country with a great budgetary outlay. Then, the national logistics policy, as I've already told you, this is a kind of national law for logistics, and this will help us take care of the regulatory hurdles that were stifling the seamless transaction. Then all of this, can we say that has helped us to drastically improve the logistic infrastructure in India? Yes, though we have a good way forward, a good way to move about it, but at the same time we've already came a long way. Now, let's talk about the role of technology, because we've already seen that the two parameters where we were lagging were actually the regulatory hurdles, custom clearances, and the second one was tracking and tracing. Can tracking and tracing be efficiently increased by incorporating technological solutions? For example, do you have incorporated RFID tags in your cars? Do you have got these EV bill integration? And these are especially for the commercial purposes. So they actually allow for the seamless and faster transportation across states and also across one mode to another. And last but not the least, we have also this technology intervention has also drastically reduced the dwelling time. What do you mean by dwelling time? Dwelling time is actually the amount of time that the cargo, or the container which is at the port, the time or the waiting time for that cargo before it is loaded to the vessel for the transport. That is known as the dwelling time. The dwelling time in India, fortunately, has drastically reduced. Previously, before 2014, it was 52 days. Cargo was waiting for 52 days before being loaded into the vessel. And now it has been drastically reduced to an average of 3 days. And this has also drastically improved our performance in the logistics index. Now, that is why, to summarize all of it, what is the need of the hour? We need to perform infrastructural reforms, and we are doing so with the help of PM Gati Shakti initiative, Bharatmala, Sagarmala program, etc. We need to have regulatory reforms that again we are doing through national logistics policy. We also need to have certain technological investments. We need more research and development in this regard, but at the same time we have these following reforms already taken by the government of India. You can incorporate all of this as it is in your mains answers. Now let's get on to the next topic. In the next article, we will be thoroughly evaluating the prospects of installing a wind energy infrastructure in any place. And why is this in news? Because the wind power project led down by Adani Green Energy in Sri Lanka has attracted controversy, as it has attracted concerns from locals and environmentalists over its possible impact on the coastal region and on their livelihoods. This again entails two parts of the syllabus. GS3, where you have to read about the infrastructure, specifically the green energy infrastructure, and then GS2, where you have to talk about the international relations, as we are talking about relations between India and Sri Lanka, and what role will this wind energy project have on the same. So first of all, let's begin with evaluating or studying the features of wind power in the first place. Wind energy, as you know, is derived from wind power. It's actually a form of solar energy only. Because of the differential solar insolation, what happens? We see the rise of wind. And as a result, this wind, which is carrying the kinetic energy, it flows, it moves the turbines, which is then responsible for converting this natural kinetic energy into a mechanical electrical energy. And this is how we are basically able to generate a renewable source of energy for us. We are generating electricity from a renewable source, which is wind. Basic introduction of wind power. This is having zero emissions, and hence it is very important for us to study. Zero emissions in the terms of zero carbon, in the terms of zero amount of pollutants. Unlike the coal and the thermal power plants, as you can see, they emit sulfur dioxide, they emit carbon dioxide, methane gases. All of them are either greenhouse gases or pollutants, but they have got zero emissions, perfectly environmental friendly. Then we also need to study the type of turbines used in these infrastructures. Typically, you know only about such kind of wind farms which are having horizontal axis wind turbines. So as you can see, they are aligned horizontally, And the second type of turbines, which are lesser heard of but most often installed in offshores, these are the vertical axis turbines. What is the difference between them? I have already provided this table for you to study. Broadly, I can tell you that for the horizontal axis, it is basically the most common type of wind power plants that you see across you, and basically this has got higher electricity generation capacity as compared to the vertical ones. They have got lower electricity generation capacity, and therefore they are used in limited amount because of their poor performance. One good thing about installing the vertical axis wind turbine is because they are not sensitive to the wind direction, because they can rotate in omnidirectional pattern. Whereas on the other hand, the horizontal axis wind turbines are heavily dependent upon the wind direction, so they needed to be adjusted accordingly. So basically, we've understood the types of turbine. There are two types of them, broad ones. Now, we'll talk about the installations, whether this project is installed on the land, whether it is installed on the land or whether it is installed on the sea. If it is installed on the land, then this is known as an onshore project. Otherwise, it will be known as offshore project, which is going to give you higher efficiency, of course, the offshore ones. But of course, this is going to have higher installation cost as compared to the onshore ones. Let's also have some examples of the same. So do you know that there is a plant in Jaisalmer, there's a plant in Tamil Nadu, and which is also one of the largest wind power plant. So both of these plants are actually installed in the land, and therefore they are known as the onshore projects. Whereas one that has been installed in Gulf of Mannar, Gulf of Kambat, they are located in the areas of waters, and therefore they are known as the offshore plants. Now basic differences are clear to us. Having said that, we must also have a quick analysis of the wind energy status of India. How good is India performing in this regard, and what is India's achieved, or what are India's esteemed targets? So first of all, when it comes to total wind power capacity, India ranks 4th across the world. This is a very important data for you to know. You can begin your answer with this introduction, a very aptly suited one. Next, the total installed capacity of the wind power till date in India is of about 40 gigawatts. It's actually pretty commendable, but we had the target that we will be getting installation of about 60 gigawatt by 2022, which we have failed to achieve. And the second thing is that the final aim, under the Panchamrit principles, we have accorded these targets that we'll be generating about 140 gigawatt worth of energy from the wind power by the year 2030. This is kind of the nationally determined contribution for the India, and the current installation capacity unfortunately represents only 28% of the same. So we have got huge potential again, but at the same time we are underperforming. I hope that is clear to you. Next, what is the state-wise distribution? Which states are performing brilliantly well? Contrary to the belief that Tamil Nadu would be performing the best, it is actually seen that Gujarat has got 25% of the total installed capacity. However, this keeps changing. So you must keep yourself updated with the data. Then it is Tamil Nadu. However, in this map it has been shown that Tamil Nadu stands at the first position, but according to the recent data, it is Gujarat which is performing first, and then again there are other states as well. But as you can see that there can be a divide in the potential of wind energy in India as well. If you create this axis, if you create this north-south axis, you will be able to see that Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, and to some extent Kerala, they are performing good in wind energy and not the other states. So you can also incorporate this map in the answers. Now, what is the potential of India? If you talk about the onshore and the offshore potential, if I compare with it, the onshore which is in the land, has got wind energy potential of more than 1000 gigawatt. And as compared to the offshore ones, it has got wind energy potential of about 200 gigawatts. So if a statement comes to you in the prelims examination that we have got more energy potential where? Definitely in the land, not in the sea. Now, what are the advantages of installing wind power infrastructure in any country, be it India or in any other country? First of all, it is a renewable source of energy, which means the fuel which is driving the electricity never runs out. It is wind. Wind is prevalently available everywhere, and it is replenishable again because it's a natural resource. So therefore, the wind never runs out. So it can be reliable in that manner. So we will not be concerned about draining of the fuel, as we can see in the case of thermal power plants, because of the running of fossil fuels. Next is, it causes zero emissions, has got no pollutants, has got no greenhouse gas emissions, makes it perfectly environmentally friendly option. Next, it helps us to have more cleaner environment. There is no contamination, no waste, no pollutant emitted because of this. So again, a very environmental friendly option. Then it is a cheaper form of energy again. If you talk about the installations of the photovoltaic cells which are required to drive the solar energy, or if you talk about the hydrothermal plants, or if you talk about the hydro plants, the thermal plants, they are very capital intensive. But as compared to that, this one is a cheaper form of energy, because first of all, the raw material or the fuel that is driving it is completely free of cost, and the installation cost is also not that much high because the output is very good. So therefore, it's a cheaper form of energy as compared to other alternatives. And then it's a renewable energy, and these days we are finding that there is an alarming voice of feeding countries with renewable energy infrastructure in order to have, or in order to achieve the naturally determined contributions according to the Paris climate goals. So can you also see that there is great demand of renewable energy projects, this being one of them, which will be able to provide huge job prospects and impetus to the overall economy as well. So therefore, it's good for the job, it's good for the economy, it's good for the environment. So overall, good infrastructure to invest in. But then there are certain disadvantages associated with it as well. The first one is its intermittency and variability. It is dependent upon a natural resource, and you have no control over the natural resource, like let's say wind. So the efficiency of this plant depends upon two things. First of all, the weather condition, whether it is a dry period or whether it is a moist period having monsoon, etc., having thunderstorms, or whether it is having the appropriate wind speed or not to drive the turbines. So it is dependent upon the natural resource, that is wind. Therefore, the output is variable. Therefore, this is not a very reliable source of energy as compared to thermal power plant. That's first disadvantage. Second one, if it is not environmentally degrading, because it is having no emissions at all, but at the same time it can be destructive. Why? Because it requires large amount of area for the construction of its infrastructure. Meanwhile, compromising with other activities, for example, agriculture, which could be done over here. For example, some habitat settlements, they have to be replaced. For example, there are certain wildlife habitats which are over here. They also needs to be destructed in order to lay down these infrastructure. So definitely it has got certain destructive impacts when it comes to environmental thing. Second thing is, there are avian collisions. So collisions, because they operate at very high speed and often installed at a very great height. So therefore, they are also a threat to especially the migratory birds like bats, and also to some other birds which are often endangered, which are often endemic, and therefore they can also cause collisions. They can cause some casualties to their lives, which also needs to be taken care of. So there's a threat on biodiversity, there's threat on livelihood of the people, there's threat on wildlife habitat. So these are some repercussions. Second, as I've already told you, it requires vast extensive area for the infrastructure to be laid. Basically, land use is more. So basically, the footprint of the infrastructure is also more as compared to any other form of project. So therefore, it has got huge land use, leading to more amount of displacement, leading to more amount of migration, leading to more amount of degradation of natural habitat, and also the aesthetic or the recreational habitats which could have been used for tourism, etc. Then it can also create noise and visual pollution. If you're creating huge turbines, it will of course hinder the visibility, it will of course hinder the aesthetics of that region. And second, the turbines, if inefficient, they can also cause huge noise pollution, creating unease amongst the people, amongst the wildlife, etc. So these are some of the disadvantages, and this is why the Sri Lankan people have been opposing the installation of Adani project. Now, what can be the way forward? Because we realize one thing, that this is a good mode of infrastructure, clean mode of infrastructure, and which will be able to give clean energy to us. But at the same time, there are certain challenges which needs to be dealt with. So how can you make a balance between both of them? First of all, by doing proper surveys, environmental impact assessment, to have the right site planning. So right site selection and appropriate planning is the first step before indulging into such investments. Second thing, we need to have advanced turbine technology, as you can see being incorporated by Netherlands, by Germany, etc. So there you can see that advanced turbine technology which produces less visual pollution, less noise pollution, that can be incorporated. Next, we can also incorporate certain wildlife protection measures. For example, we can have certain radar alerts, we can have certain early warning systems, we can have certain sensors installed, so that we can deviate such collisions, such animal or such avian and turbine collision to happen. Then we also need community engagement, and we need to provide them benefit sharing. In order to appease community to allow such projects to be installed in their land, what do we need? We need to first of all incorporate them in the decision making process. Second, we also need to ask for their reviews. Second, we also need to allow for some revenue sharing model with them. We need to provide investment in their social projects. We need to also, provide them better alternatives, better employment. In fact, local employment should be promoted in such projects, in such wind projects, if they are installed over there. So it should be helping the local people end of the day. Then only they'll allow the installation. And finally, we need policy and regulatory support from the government itself, so that government first of all needs to promote some of the private investments. Government also needs to provide some of the tax benefits, can also provide some other innovative methods. For example, the renewable energy certificates can be provided, so that nationally they are able to produce their own green energy infrastructure, as can be seen in the case of Sri Lanka. So we India should try to empower by providing them expertise, technology transfer, capital investment in order to boost their economy. It shouldn't seem like as if we are being benefited from them at the cost of their livelihood, at the cost of their environmental degradation. That should be the correct way forward. Now let's talk about a very interesting case study. This is about the recently happening Karnataka Drought. Bengaluru, Karnataka's capital city, is seeing worst water crisis, which leaves IT capital high and dry. And it's not just Bengaluru, but also districts like Mysore and Mandya who are also encountering such water crisis. What are the reasons? How can we overcome them? We will analyze in this topic. This is pertaining to again two parts of the GS main syllabus, and a question on the same has been asked as it is in UPSC mains examination in the year 2019. So by the end of this discussion, can you also please try to attend this question? Let's see if you can do that. Now, first of all, we will understand what are the reasons behind the Bengaluru's severe water scarcity that is happening. This is not the first time when Bengaluru is encountering this. There has been many spells of such droughts across the years, specifically in the last 10 years. But this one has been the worst in the last 4 years. What are the reasons? First of all, there is depletion in the water resources. Water comes in this area through multiple sources. First of all, the monsoon that comes. Second, the water reservoirs in the form of tanks that are created, lakes that are created. Then we have got underground water, and all of them have found to be depleted in these months. What has degraded the amount of rainfall? It is the climatic change event, and specifically the El Nino. As you can see, we have already taught you in the previous analyst, the last year was the peak of El Nino, and El Nino actually persists right now as well. It is declining gradually, but it is still prevalent. So El Nino basically reduces the amount of monsoon. It reduces the amount of monsoon in India. So anyway, we were low on monsoon. And even if when we were low on monsoon, the water reservoirs were also not efficient enough to percolate it inside. The water reservoirs that were basically fed by rivers. These rivers, by the way, are not perennial rivers. They are the peninsular rivers, and this is specifically fed by Kaveri River. And Kaveri River and the Kaveri River basin, you can also see that the concentration of its water has also depleted to up to 40% in the last 1 year. So again, the water reservoirs have also been depleted. Next, the groundwater. So even if you have got reservoirs, even if you have got some amount of monsoon, what if because of heavy concretization that rainfall is not able to percolate inside the ground so that it can recharge the groundwater? Then what happens? Even the quality and the quantity of groundwater is also compromised. So it is actually being attacked from all the three fronts of water resources. Rainfall is less, water reservoirs are not good enough, they are not having adequate amount of water. In fact, the main water reservoirs have been depleted up to 39%. And then there is also depletion of groundwater. Now, even if you have got water, if it is not suitable for consumption, then again that water is of no use. So again, there is high industrialization in the Bengaluru region specifically, which has led to again high degree of pollution of the water that is coming from sewage, that is coming from solid waste dumping, that is coming from industrial effluent. All of that is actually polluting the existing water reservoirs, water resources, making it unfit for use. So the current water that you have is also polluted, again making it misfit. Next is the poor management from the sides of authority. If you talk about the resource sharing, if any area has been stuck with a calamity like drought, there has to be certain amount of funding to be provided. Now there are debates going on between central government and the state government that who will provide how much amount of fund. This eventually degrades the regulation, the administration and the prevention of such drought, mitigation of such drought, because you're not getting the fund allocated at the right time. So first of all, mismanagement in the terms of fund allocation. The second is mismanagement or in the terms of equitable distribution of water. You already know about the Kaveri water dispute, very infamous dispute of water sharing between the states of Tamil Nadu and between Karnataka. So here you can see that this particular issue has not been resolved yet, and therefore again Bengaluru city compromises or is seeing a lot of droughts in the upcoming years, or has been seeing in the previous years as well. So now, what is the water crisis alarm and why you need to take it very seriously? There are certain reports that have showed. First of all, you need to remember that India incorporates 14% of the total world population. And how much amount of water resources do we have in hand? We have only got 4% of the water resources, natural, fit and potable water resources with us. Naturally, it means that our needs are way exceeding. The population needs, the demand of water is exceeding the amount of availability of water, and whenever this situation prevails, it creates a condition called water stress. So whenever it happens, so much so that the need of the water for per capita consumption that exceeds the amount of available natural resources of water, then this creates water stress in the area and the district, in the country overall. If you talk about India, according to Composite Water Management Index, about 57% of Indian districts are currently running as water stress districts. So basically, you can observe that mostly if you draw a line right from Haryana to the south, you can see that you will observe highly depleted water reservoirs and underground sources over here. And this is actually the line, these are actually the 7 states where Atal Bhujal Yojana is also working in order to recharge these water resources, the underground water resource. Anyway, so what is the water crisis alarm? First of all, the water demand, as I've already told you, the demand or the needs are already very high, and it is about to double up by 2030 as per a report of Niti Aayog as compared to the total available supply. So demand is going to increase. Second, the rate of depletion or the availability, as you can oversee here, this is going to decline at a tripling rate. From which year? From 2041 to 2080, again according to Niti Aayog report. And this is why? Because of the enhancing climate change that is happening. And it has been observed that India has actually witnessed a day zero. When is a day zero? When the main reservoirs of a city or a particular district is unable to fulfill the basic water requirement of the residents. This actually happened in the year 2019 when Chennai saw its very first day zero. The 4 main reservoirs of Chennai, all of them got depleted. All of them got dried up, and therefore the government authorities have to push the restrictions for the use of tapped water supply. This is known as day zero, and this has already happened in Chennai. Again, another case study which you can use. So then, how can we address the water crisis in India? The first thing that we need to do is make a shift in our approach to consider water as one wholesome resource, irrespective of where it is coming from and who it is used by. So basically, we have to adopt one water approach. This is similar to the one health approach that we used to do during the times of COVID. Anyway, coming to one water approach, basically it's about bringing together all the stakeholders, right from the agriculturalists, the farmers, to the industrialist, to the policy maker. All of them should come together in order to create water governance, which is decentralized, which is democratized. So we need to have a one water approach where we are trying to put in together all the stakeholders and where we are trying to regulate and where we are trying to conserve water resources at every level, be it at the effluent level, discharge level, irrigation level, or even managing conservation and pollution and abating the pollution of the rivers. So in all these fronts we have to work together. This is one water approach. Next is, nothing can be done without community participation, and I hope you can appreciate that. In fact, there has been projects taken up by World Bank, specifically in the Deccan areas in the Peninsula Plateau, which have been seeing a lot of droughts of late. So it has been seen that when you participate the community for the conservation and the preservation of water resources, and you give them their due rights and their due participation in the water governance, better results are seen in case of the overall regulation, conservation and governance of water. Then you have to promote sustainable agriculture. Agriculture, specifically if you observe the green revolution belt, has been the main culprit of polluting, degrading the water tables. So sustainable agriculture is the way forward right now. How can you perform that? By performing conservation, by performing permaculture, by performing or incorporating irrigation, for example, drip irrigation, for example, sprinklers. In fact, it has been observed by M.S. Swaminathan report in his more crop per drop report, where it was seen that if you incorporate such practices, it will lower down the usage of water by about 50% in the agriculture. Isn't it sustainable? So therefore, you need to promote sustainable agriculture. It's good for the agriculture, good for the farmer, good for the economy, good for the water. Now, equitable distribution of the resources is important and conservation is important. How can we do? By incorporating and taking serious methods for interlinking of rivers, so that rivers which are heavily flooded can be connected with rivers which are heavily depleted. Both of them can be connected together. You already know about the Ken-Betwa interlinking project. So one can be taken with regards to the Kaveri River or the Kaveri River basin as well. Then we have to make the water available to us fit for consumption. So therefore, we need to address pollution, and we can have stringent enforcement of regulations with regards to the treatment of sewage, with regards to the unabated release of the pollutant waste, dumping of the waste in the water resources, and all of that can be taken care by stringent regulations. So basically, we need to work on all these fronts. It has to be a multi-dimensional approach. Is India working in this regard? Obviously. If you talk about the groundwater management, we have got Atal Bhujal Yojana. If you talk about pollution abatement, we have got National Mission for Clean Ganga. If you talk about water conservation, creation of tanks, community engagement, we have got Manrega incorporated for the same. If you talk about creating awareness of conservation of water, we have got Jal Kranti Abhiyan, we have National Water Mission, we have got Jal Jeevan Mission to provide the tapped water supply. Many missions are going on. But the devil lies in implementation, effective implementation. If we ensure that, we will be able to abate the upcoming water crisis. Talking about the fourth topic, this is the atmospheric research testbed recently launched in the Sihor district of Madhya Pradesh. And this deals with again two things: geophysical phenomena and the places in news. This is an important one because this has been an innovation from the front of Ministry of Earth Sciences. This project is funded by it, and it has been installed by Institute of Tropical Meteorology, where at Sihor district of Madhya Pradesh. Now you will be wondering why this particular project, why this particular location has been chosen, because this location lies in the monsoon core zone. Monsoon core zone, as you can see, the blue zone is that zone which receives about 70% of the total monsoon that is received by India, specifically the southwest monsoon. So the best amount of intensity calculation can be done across this zone only. And if you're talking about Sihor, why not Bhopal, the nearby district, and why Sihor? Why? Because Sihor is less polluted as compared to Bhopal. So therefore, the observance of the landscape, observance of the atmospheric phenomena and the interaction of the climate and the land resources can be made very easy with the help of locating this site in district like Sihor. So basically, we are here talking about the monsoon core zone, which sees 70% of the total monsoon supply, basically becoming a natural laboratory for monsoon studies, and it's also a pollution-free zone. Now, upon understanding that, we'll understand the different phases of operation. Currently, we are under the first phase of operation, and therefore, what are we going to read? We are going to study the monsoon conventions and the convection cycle. So, what is this monsoon convection cycle? It is basically when the warm and the moist air tries to move upwards, evaporates, condenses itself into clouds. So all this phenomenon of monsoon convection is going to be read and analyzed in the phase 1, and therefore installed in somewhere in central India. So this one is focusing on convection, this one is focusing on studying on land atmosphere interaction, land, water coming from land and then moving up to atmosphere. So land atmosphere interaction is going to be read, and obviously it is going to be read in central India. Why? Because most of the monsoon convection cells have been observed to be intensified in the monsoon core zone. The monsoon core zone prevalent in central India. In the phase 2, what we will do, we will move towards northeast India, we will move towards north India, and we will try to understand the thunderstorm process. This is still under planning, it is not being implemented yet. So again, you have to understand that this is going to work in 2 phases. Which facility are we reading about? We are reading about the art facility. A question can be asked that where is it located? It can be asked in your state PCS more prevalently, but obviously in UPSC, the phases and where it is located, that can be asked. Now, additionally, you need to know the instruments. I'm not talking about the instruments in detail because that is not much of relevance, but you need to know that there are about 25 instruments installed over here. Names of some instruments are important because they can be asked in the way that what is ethalometer used for? Ethalometer is used for studying the aerosols present in the air. The second instrument is ceilometer. Ceilometer is used to study the size of clouds present in the atmosphere. Then, why would you require Doppler weather radar? This is to track the speed of the rain systems and the speed of the clouds. So these are some of the instruments which you can incorporate in your notes. Then, what is the importance? See, if you will be able to understand the convection cells properly, you will be able to predict monsoon, which is very important, specifically for Indian economy, which is mostly driven by agriculture. And monsoon, Indian agriculture is nothing but a gamble of Indian monsoon. If you are able to predict or forecast the monsoon aptly, you will be able to produce good results and good forecasts for the agricultural sector as well. This will boost our agriculture sector productivity. Fine. Next is, it is crucial amid the changing climate patterns because there are so many multiple variables which are responsible for driving and determining the Indian monsoon. It's not very easy to forecast the monsoon rightfully, and you are saying that IMD almost every time fails to predict it correctly. Why? Because there are multiple determinants and it's growing ever since more because the climate change is happening rapidly. So therefore, it is very crucial to study it more aptly, more accurately and more precisely if you want to have more precise forecast. Now, we'll wind up the discussion with the study of TRI. TRI, or the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, which is in news because of this regulation recently made by it, that as a part of anti-spam measure, it has disallowed the porting of SIM cards within 7 days of swap. So if you have swapped your SIM from, let's say, Jio to Airtel, you will not be allowed to port your SIM again within that 7 days gap. So now we will talk about this authority of TRI. Why was it created? So what happened after the 1991 LPG reforms? There was a drastic increase seen across multiple service sector industries, one of them being the telecommunication industry. So there was a rapid growth in the telecommunication industry. Again, we were not expecting that, so we were not having adequate regulation for the same. So we needed actually an independent oversight, an independent regulator who can have an independent oversight of the telecommunication industry of India, who can put up the guidelines, across multiple things. Let's say how to provide licenses, how to do spectrum allocation, and then obviously in order to obviously have a statutory monitoring as well. So it needed to be given some powers, and these powers were given via a statute and act which was promulgated in the year 1997. So it is a statutory body, of course, named as Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, Act of 1997. Now it has been headquartered in New Delhi, and the important part would be composition. It basically composes of 5 people. 5 people among them, first is the chairman having 3-year term, can be in the seat for 3 years or up to 65 years, whichever is earlier. And then there are 2 part-time members, and then there are 2 full-time members. Both of them are actually appointed by central government. Then talking about the functions, you can see so many functions have been performed by it. But Mostly, it is a recommendatory body. So it makes recommendation on multiple things. For example, introducing new service providers, revoking licenses, ensuring compliances, ensuring technical compatibility, sets quality of service standard, notifies communication service rates. It can do, but all of these are actually its recommendations. And to be noted, point to be noted is that the recommendations are not binding for the central government. Fine. Next, what about the appeal? Can you make the appeal over here? First of all, let's understand the power before understanding the appeal. What powers does it have in hand? First of all, it can make certain orders to furnish the information, certain orders to appoint the personnel, to investigate the service provider affairs, to inspect the service provider, and to issue direction to service provider. Now, if you have got any grievances against these powers that are exercised by TRAI, who will you go to? Not to the High Court, not to the Supreme Court. This is a tribunal. So this tribunal is Telecom Dispute Settlement Appellate Tribunal. This is the appellate body for any concerns regarding TRAI. It is responsible, actually it was formed under the 2000 amendment of TRAI Act, and it basically takes all the appeals against the TRAI decision. What is the composition? This is not a 5-membered body, this is just a 3-membered body, having a chairman and 2 members, again appointed by whom? State government? No, by central government. And the decisions are enforceable just like civil court decrees. This is the power which is lacked by TRAI. Fine. So this is about the TRAI. I hope you have understood, you have learned something from this session. Have a good day and do study very, very well for your examination. All the very best to you. Hope to see you again.